George Harrison's Only a Northern Song might seem like a throwaway track at first, but it's got way more going on beneath the surface. Recorded during Sgt. Pepper in 1967, it didn't actually get released until 1969 on the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. The song is packed with George's signature mix of introspection and biting wit, and it's a pretty clear indicator that by this point he was over a lot of what was going down with the Beatles.
First off, the title itself is a clever play on words. It's a nod to the Beatles' hometown of Liverpool up in the north of England, but it's also a dig at Northern Songs Limited, the publishing company set up to control the Beatles' catalog. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, their manager Brian Epstein, and music publisher Dick James were all part of this company, but George and Ringo? They were essentially just along for the ride and didn't have much say in it. George's lyrics poke fun at this situation with lines like, "It doesn't really matter what chords I play, as it's only a Northern song." Translation? I don't even own my songs, so why should I care?
It doesn't really matter what chords I play.
By 1966, George was growing pretty fed up with being sidelined in a band where Lennon and McCartney called most of the creative shots. He barely contributed to Sgt. Pepper, and Only a Northern Song was his not-so-subtle way of venting about how little space he had to shine. It was also his way of making fun of the fact that he'd signed away the rights to his own music. He later admitted in a 1999 interview that he'd been totally unaware of what he was giving up when he agreed to let Dick James become his publisher. By the time he realized what had happened, it was too late. James and the others were making bank off his work, and George was left feeling ripped off.
Musically, Only a Northern Song is one of the Beatles' trippiest tracks. It's full of random instruments like glockenspiel, timpani, and chimes, and George even played a trumpet on it, badly, on purpose.
They just play it like that.
His dad had been a trumpet player, and George kind of leaned into that family connection, but with a playful, half-serious attitude. The song is chaotic and psychedelic, but that weirdness totally fits the overall vibe of Sgt. Pepper and Yellow Submarine. Interestingly, the song didn't make the final cut for Sgt. Pepper. Instead, it sat on the shelf for a couple years until the Yellow Submarine filmmakers needed more material for the soundtrack. In the studio, they originally recorded 9 takes of the rhythm track in February 1967, but it wasn't until April that they revisited it and added more layers like bass, trumpet, and new vocals. The final version of the song ended up being this trippy mashup of different sessions, full of phasing effects and that distinctive experimental sound the Beatles were into at the time. Later, Only a Northern Song popped up in other versions. A slightly faster take with different lyrics was included on Anthology 2 in 1996.
You're listening to this song.
And in 1999, they finally released a stereo version on the Yellow Submarine songtrack. Both versions show just how much studio tinkering went into the song and how George was experimenting with both sound and his role in the band. In the end, Only a Northern Song wasn't just a joke. It was George's way of pointing out how frustrating it was to be a Beatle when you weren't named Lennon or McCartney. It's a strange, sarcastic track, but that's what makes it such a gem. It perfectly captures George's mood at the time, frustrated, a little bitter, but still finding ways to turn that into something creative.